Hello, I want to chat about our first couple of projects, focusing particularly on the soldering. Now the first one, the Rose project, is an unusual one because we've got glass layered one in front of the other. You very rarely see that with stained glass work. And also because we actually soldered them, tinned them first off individually. Now the second project that most of us are doing, the square Celtic knot, that's much more like the traditional, that's the normal routine you would normally have doing any copper foil stained glass work.
As I said, the Rose project is a bit special because we're actually layering glass one in front of the other. It's something you very rarely find in stained glass. With the square Celtic knot, this is much more the traditional routine, working with any copper foil piece of stained glass work. And the first stage is to do tack soldering. What we're doing is just joining the individual pieces together with the absolute minimum of solder, so that you can then go around and double check that they're all exactly where you want them to be. And if you need to shift them, you've just got a tiny blob of solder to move. Some people find actually just putting a blob of solder on the tip of the iron is the easiest way to get the minimum solder on there. Now if you've got one or two pieces that are slightly too small, the danger is that if they're shoved over to one side, you've got a big block of solder on one side and no space on the other side, and that will advertise to the world that you cut it too small. So as here, we've actually used some pins, ideally modelling pins, to actually shift the pieces so that they're in place where there's even gap on either side of them. That's the best way to cover up that particular problem. When you finish tack soldering, you're happy that everything's where it ought to be, then you're just doing flat soldering. As the tack soldering, you're using 50-50 solder, half tin, half lead, and just joining the whole piece together, flipping it over and doing the same on the other side.